What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Ice from Game Changer Sports Network. Once again, we are joined by my friend Kevin as we are going to discuss the wild card race in each conference. We are now to the point of the season where the majority of teams have less than 10 games remaining in their regular season, and things are definitely starting to heat up in both conferences. Also, guys, don't forget to check out the Game Changer Sports Network and Inside the Ice Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook account for Game Changer Sports Network. Give us a follow, like our pages, and share anything you want. So, Kevin, you want to start with the Eastern Conference and break that down for us?
Yeah, absolutely. How's it going today, guys? So I'm just going to give a quick rundown of the Eastern Conference playoff positions. So right now in the Metro, we got the Caps in first, Islanders in second, Penguins in third. The Atlantic, we got the Lightning in first, obviously, the Bruins in second, and the Maple Leafs in third. And then our two wild card spots are Carolina and Columbus. So basically, Tim and I have kind of come to an agreement that unofficially, but in our opinion, Tampa Bay, Boston, Toronto, and Washington are all locks to stay in the playoffs and in the seeded positions.
Yeah.
But all the other teams are up in the air, so we're going to start breaking those down now. So I'll get started with the Islanders. In their last game of the season, the Islanders are going to see some familiar faces and some competitors. They're going to be playing against Philly, Arizona, Columbus, Winnipeg, Buffalo, Toronto, Florida, and Washington. So, I mean, with the exception of Buffalo and Florida, these are all teams that are either in better standings than them or fighting for a playoff spot. So they're definitely going to have some competition. They're currently 11-8-1 in their last 20 games, so they're slightly over 500. But unfortunately, they're the worst in goals allowed right now. I mean, after that game 2 nights ago against Boston, we kind of saw that come out. I think their greatest strength for them to stay in their spot is that the teams below them are going to need to overperform. So it's very possible we could see them drop down to the wild card, but I don't think they're going to drop out of the playoff race altogether.
Oh, no, I don't think out of the playoff race at all. But I do agree with you that they very well could drop because, like you said, with the exception of Buffalo, every game that they have left is against a team that needs to win or really wants to win, so they're going to be giving them their 100%. We've also seen this year, like you said, they struggle heavily against other contender teams. However, like you said, the Pittsburgh Penguins are also not a lock because they've hit a little skid in the past 3 games, losing 3 in a row, one to Philly and one to Columbus, both division teams and both teams that really want to win pretty much every game for the rest of the season. Pittsburgh is only ahead of Carolina by 2 points right now, who are 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. If there's a team in the wild card spot right now that I expect to jump up into that top 3 spot, it's the Carolina Hurricanes for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Just to circle back to Pittsburgh for a sec, just to take a look at their final games of the season, they're going to be going up against Nashville, Dallas, the Rangers, Nashville again, Carolina, Detroit twice in a row, and then the Rangers for their last game. So their last 3 games with the Detroit Red Wings and the New York Rangers might give them a little bit of a cushion because they're definitely performing better. But seeing them play Nashville twice as well as Carolina, who we were just saying if anyone could jump up, it's them. It's definitely going to be interesting. As far as the Pens' record goes, they're not too bad playing against teams in the Western Conference, so that's definitely a positive for them. I think the biggest question is, can they get out of their current rut?
Yeah, that is a big question. And I do believe that Malkin has missed a few games recently due to injury. So that could be hindering the Penguins a little bit. But Pittsburgh is going to need to find their firepower because they do have a really explosive offense. And if they can find that switch and turn it on, they are a dangerous team in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Going into our first wild card with Carolina. I'm actually a little nervous for them. I was in pretty firm belief that they were going to see the playoffs for sure, maybe even take a third seed. But after looking at their final 10 games, it might be a little tough. So it's going to be Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Montreal, Washington twice, then Philly, Pittsburgh, Toronto, the Devils, and then Philly again. So Philly and the Devils, they might get a break there, and then in the very beginning with Edmonton, but again, or I'm sorry, with Buffalo, but I don't know. I'm not really sure, Tim. Carolina could see a lot of losses coming their way.
And Carolina is they aren't necessarily the most experienced team at the moment. And headed into those final games, Philadelphia could be still a little bit in the hunt and desperate. So they could sneak away with some of those games, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Flyers do bring their A game for those games.
Yeah, I think to say one positive thing about Carolina, in addition to all of that, is I feel like they were kind of the New Jersey Devils of last year, where not a lot of people saw them coming and performing. They've got a lot of young talent, only a few veterans, but they've really shown a lot of people wrong. And the fact that they're sticking to their wild card spot right now leads me to believe that they're not out of this yet.
Yeah, no, I don't believe so. One team that does pose a little concern, and I might jump into the second spot right now, is the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Absolutely.
They are 4-5-1 in their last 10 games.
Yeah, I feel like I don't really need to list their final games for this one. They have a pretty favorable schedule. I mean, their first two are Edmonton and Vancouver, and their last game is against Ottawa. I think as long as they take the wins against the teams below them and play strong against the teams above them, they should be able to hold their spot.
Yeah. Considering the next few teams in the standings are Montreal, Philadelphia, and Florida, I do feel like there is a clear gap between Carolina, Columbus, and Montreal, Philly, and Florida, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Montreal, out of the three, Montreal, Philly, and Florida, I could see the Canadiens being the ones to sneak in and possibly knock out Columbus, Carolina, or even Pittsburgh if they keep this skid going. I think their biggest knock, though, is they're below par when playing against their people in their own conference, and they struggle on the road.
Yeah, Montreal is a young team this year too, and I think just the fact that they are in like a hunt right now speaks a lot to where this team could be going, because last season was not a good season for Canadiens fans. I will say that it is a reach right now, but I think Florida, if they can win out or even win the majority of their games, they have a shot to sneak in. But like we discussed, Florida has some tough games coming up. Pretty much every game in the last 8 to 9 games are against contender teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have one knock against Florida and Philadelphia each. For Philly, they're in the bottom 10 teams in the league right now for goals allowed, shots on goals, penalty points, and penalty minutes. So I think that's just some sloppy hockey being played. There's no doubt that they have experienced veterans and strong rookies, but I'm not sure. I believe they're 5 points below Montreal and 6 below Columbus. So they're definitely going to need to play hard in all of their games. And then for Florida, I feel like they're 8 points back right now. They're in a very similar position to where they were last year, and we saw that they didn't make it then either.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on the Eastern Conference right now?
I believe everyone below Florida is just too far out.
Yeah, no.
So I think we should hop into the West.
All right, just before we do that, real quick, one side fact that I have that I noticed: Carolina, Philadelphia, Columbus, and Montreal, all of their power plays rank in the bottom 11 of the league.
Really? No kidding.
which is not what a team needs when they need to win some games, because that just shows if they do get those power plays, they aren't taking advantage of those opportunities.
No, absolutely. I mean, when you're playing a stronger team or when you just have those nights where everyone isn't 100%, I mean, your biggest advantage is having those 5-on-4s or 3-on-5s. So if they're not capitalizing on stuff like that, it's really going to be tough for them to slide into a wild card spot.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to go over the West real quick, and then we'll discuss our thoughts. In the Central Division, we have Winnipeg at first, Nashville in second, St. Louis in third. Pacific Division, we have Calgary in first, San Jose in second, and Vegas in third. The 2 wild card spots are Dallas and Arizona right now. Like Kevin did in the East, I'm going to name a few teams that we discussed and feel that are locks to be in the playoffs right now. In the Central, we both agreed that Winnipeg and Nashville are expected to be there. We expect to see them playing playoff hockey. And then all of the top 3 teams in the Pacific, Calgary, San Jose, and Vegas, all should make the playoffs. And in my opinion, are locks. Calgary and San Jose already have clinched a spot. So it's just left to Vegas right now. And Vegas is 9-1-0 in their last 10. But do you have any thoughts on St. Louis right now?
Yeah, I think St. Louis is going to be hitting a bit of a struggle in their last 9 or 10 games. Their conference record isn't great, and actually, conference record not being great is actually one plus for them because they are going to be playing a lot of Eastern Conference teams to finish it up. But I think Dallas and Arizona are closing in on them. So even if we don't see the Blues drop out of the playoffs completely, which very well could happen, we could definitely see Dallas take their spot, possibly even Arizona. St. Louis, their one lucky point comes from the fact that their biggest competitors coming up in their last 9 games are Tampa Bay and Vegas. After that, I mean, they play Colorado and Chicago, who are both fighting for spots, but everyone else they face is already out of the playoff run.
Yeah. I definitely see Nashville and Winnipeg stealing those top 2 spots, though. However, with the seasons that Winnipeg and Nashville had, if Dallas continues to play like this, they aren't that far behind. So unless Nashville and Winnipeg both continue their winning streaks right now, the Jets are on a 4-game winning streak and the Preds are on a 3-game winning streak, you could see the Stars potentially even sneak to that 2nd spot. But I think that 3rd spot is definitely a more reachable finish line for the Dallas Stars. Like I said, the top 3 teams in the Pacific are most likely and definitely going to be in the playoffs. So we've touched upon Dallas. They are 7-2. They are 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. They have the 5th best penalty kill, and they're 4th in faceoff percentages. 2 pretty important stats that we both touched upon in yesterday's episode, where we discussed how it's crucial just to have that first few seconds of the possession of the puck after a faceoff. But the second team in the wild card spot right now is Arizona, and they also are pretty hot right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And to continue on that, I think they can keep their streak going. Their next 2 games are against the Florida Panthers and the New Jersey Devils. Both teams that, I mean, they aren't going to hand Arizona a win, but the Arizona Coyotes definitely have a more favorable next 5 or 6 game streak than a lot of other people fighting for spots. I'm not sure if you had any more stats about Arizona. I believe they have a really good shots on goal or goals scored.
I have 2 little stats. They have 2nd on the penalty kill in the league with a kill rate of 85.4%. And however, they are 30th in face-off win percentages with just a winning percentage of 47.2%. But there is one surprising thing, and I feel like, who would you think is the worst in face-offs this year for a team?
Worst in face-offs?
One team is Arizona right now.
Is it Detroit?
No, it's the Washington Capitals.
No. Oh my God, that's actually pretty crazy.
Yeah. But we'll jump back into where we left off. I just thought that was a little interesting.
No, that's a nice fact.
So in the hunt right now, Minnesota is at 77 points, Colorado is at 76 points, Chicago is at 74 points, and Vancouver is at 74 points. But I do feel like there's a huge gap between Chicago's chances and Vancouver's chances, despite them being both at 74 points. That might have to do with the Canucks already having 2 games played on Chicago. The Chicago Blackhawks will have 2 games remaining when Vancouver finishes their season.
Yeah, I think if we are going to have to debate between the two, it would definitely be Chicago over Vancouver. I believe they're only 3 points back from Minnesota, which would put them 4 from Arizona. So that's really only 2 games they have to be to make it in. Honestly, though, I'm just not sure. We've seen old school Chicago, and we've seen the kind of older player Chicago. So I mean, you follow them a little bit more than I do. I'm just not sure if they're going to have what it takes to just pass through these other 4 teams above them.
If they do, it's going to have to be because Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews put the team on their back. Like, really, when you look at the roster, it is nowhere near as deep as it was when they won those cups. And if you look at the stats, Kane leads the team in points by over 20, and then the next guy is Toews. Like, those 2 guys are leading that team this year, and I have to be given credit for them even being in a chance to clinch a spot right now.
I think if they can start playing smart, they might have a better chance than Minnesota and Colorado. Now that I think about it, I don't think Minnesota's going to see the playoffs this year. No. I think this is going to be the first year in a while that they've missed it because out of their last 8 or 9 games, they're going to be playing Washington, Nashville, Vegas, Winnipeg, and Boston. And I just don't know. I just don't see them overcoming more than like 1 or 2 of those teams when they play them. They're also going to see Arizona and Dallas, 2 teams fighting to stay above them. So Minnesota's just not looking good. And even if they can somehow sneak into a wild card spot, they have an extremely poor away record this year. So I just don't see them going anywhere either way.
Not to mention, they're 3-4-3 in their last 10 games. So it's not like they're doing well in their last 10 games. They have not performed well at all.
Exactly.
Even Colorado, they are just 2 points out of a spot, but themselves, they're 5-5-0 in their last 10 games. And I feel like Landeskog, that injury just completely derailed Colorado because that whole team was that one line. And I think Chicago, if they can win just a few more games, they'll be able to jump up a few spots quickly. It's just up to Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Colorado was another one of those teams that came out last year and surprised everyone. But this year they've definitely evened out. And like you said, that injury, when you lose your best player or one of your best players, and you're on a team that's already in the fringe of a wild card spot, it's not looking positive. Sometimes you have to start thinking next year.
Yeah. All right, guys. So that's a little breakdown of the wild card races, conference by conference, and who we think could move up, who we think could move down. And we're going to be following this because within 3 weeks, the season is over. So keep watching our videos, like us, share us, check out Inside the Ice and Game Changers Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube account. Follow us, like us, and I'll see you guys real soon.